Dear participants, a warm welcome to 3 days webinar on Introduction to Indian Temple Architecture and Iconography is being organized by the Department of History in collaboration with Directorate of Distance Education, Azhagappa University, Karaikal. We are honored to have the introductory note of this 3 days webinar from our Honorable Vibrant Vice Chancellor of Azhagappa University, Karaikal. Our notable resource person, Professor S. Rajavelu, Adjunct Faculty, Department of History, Azhagappa University, is going to share his views on Introduction to Indian Temple Architecture and Iconography. I would like to appreciate the efforts and the fullest support of our convener of this program, Professor K. Manimerale, Director in charge, Directorate of Distance Education. I hope you all will gain a new knowledge in this area. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Good morning to everybody. Professor Manimerale, the Director of Distance Education, Azhagappa University, Karaikal, the convener of this program on 3-day webinar on Introduction to Indian Temple Architecture and Iconography. Dr. Saravana Kumar, the head of the Department of History, and the resource person, Professor Rajavelu, Adjunct Faculty, Department of History, Azhagappa University, Karaikal. Very distinguished scholars, professors, and participants. Once again, good morning to everybody. I am really happy that the Department of History is very active. I think this is the third or fourth program that the Department of History is organizing, particularly on Indian temple architecture and iconography. And Professor Rajavelu is a known epigraphist and archaeologist. He has been serving as adjunct faculty of Azhagappa University, Department of History, for more than a year. He has been also associated with some of the archaeological excavations of State Archaeology Department, and hence I think his presence and his presentation on this particular program will be of great immense use to all the participants. First of all, I must say that in India, temples play a very important role. Right from the beginning, what we have as evidence of the socio-economic, political grandeur of Indian civilization is the temples that remain both in the north as well as in the south. And this is a standing testimony to the great achievements in terms of not only economic prosperity but also the engineering skills exhibited by these dynasties, various dynasties that ruled India, particularly the Konark temple and the temples in other places, and the cave, Ajanta and Ellora cave temple architecture. And we have in the south, particularly in Tamil Nadu, the Brihadiswara temple, Gangaikonda Solapuram, and there is innumerable temples in the city of Kumbakonam and everywhere. And these temples exhibit the historical facts as well as the history behind each and every temple is very enormous. So, in order to understand not only the architectural part of the temples, because the temples are really the part of the administration of the dynasty. There is a saying in Tamil, we should not live in a place where there is no temple, and that is what they say. If there is no temple in a town or a village, people should not live in that place, in a village or a town. So in each village, each town, there seems to be a temple, and as part and parcel of their social life, their economic activity, as well as the rulers, in order to exhibit their political power, they have constructed huge mammoth temples. Particularly the Bragadiswara temple that was built by Rajaraja the First, the Chola monarch, and Thanjavur is a standing testimony to this fact. There are many wonders attached to this temple. One such wonder is particularly Thanjavur is a plain where it is also known as the granary of Tamil Nadu for a long time, and where Kaveri runs through the Chola country, especially Thanjavur. And yet they have brought granites from nearby Pudukottai. They transported from Narthamalai huge rocks, granite, to build this mammoth temple. First of all, we must try to understand that how science and technology also played a very great role in construction of these temples. And mostly people go to temples to worship, nothing wrong in it, and be a Vaishnavite or a Saivite. We go inside and then they are, in fact, they pay the worship and they get the blessings of the Lord. But at the same time, as a historian, as a scholar, when you enter a particular temple, you will be always be keen to understand what type of design the temple was made, and how the blueprint was done, and what kind of measurements were done, and how this huge construction are still defying age and time, stand as a testimony to the skills, engineering skills of those times. And this is indeed a great achievement of the yesteryears, particularly the rulers of yesteryears. And not only the rulers of yesteryear, they were the patrons. And these temples were constructed under the patronage of these rulers. But the people who worked under these rulers, in fact, working on a granite is not a small, say, mean achievement. That is because if a brick is broken, immediately another brick can be, say, replaced. But a huge granite stone need to be precisely cut and precisely chiseled, and then it has to be integrated into the entire structure. So the entire structure was built on granite, and under such circumstances there is no measure of failures or wrong calculations or there any faulty construction, which means the engineering skill of those people were something extraordinary to be believed. Even today people wonder how a huge stone of 80 tons, weighing 80 tons, was placed on the gopuram of the entire say temple, and how it was achieved, whether it is a one block or made up of several blocks, is the discussion going on among the scholars. But apart from this, what we have to understand is the kind of labor that was involved in the whole process. There should have been a dedicated labor and enormous resources that the state mobilized to construct these temples. In fact, one such temple, in fact, they exhibit not only the grandeur as well as great design, but also they combine astronomy and as well as precise mathematical calculations. There is a temple in Bogonum which I happened to visit and see, and they say when the sun moves from Dakshayana to Uttarayana, and on that particular day for a week, early morning, 6 o'clock, the sun rays penetrates directly to the sanctum sanctorum and then falls on the deity, which means this happens only during that particular period and for only 1 week, and there will be a large gathering to witness this celestial feat when sun rays touches the sanctum sanctorum and falls on the deity himself, and this is again is not a small achievement. That is because there should have been a great calculation of the positioning of the DT as well as ground plan of the engineering skill exhibited by the masons as well as the architects, so as to incorporate the movement of the sun and as well as the planets, so that on every year without fail that the sun rays would penetrate on a particular layer and fall on the DT. This is how we see many of the temples that they exhibit a great engineering skill of the yesteryears. And the measurements we do not know. Unfortunately, what we have to understand is why this is important is we do not have documentation. Though there are certain documentations, these documentations were not incorporated into the kind of history that we read today. Because the history that we read today, and that is because there is a dividing line between 1835 and prior knowledge of the Indian achievements. Pre-colonial India possessed great advancements in science and technology, civil engineering and architecture. But these things were done with the regional as well as Indianized knowledge system. And this Indianized knowledge system was not fully documented and integrated into the Western education system. As a result, there is a dividing line between the pre-colonial knowledge system and the post-colonial knowledge system. We try to understand the measurements, the knowledge that we possess today, the knowledge system as well as the architectural skills of those people. In a way, it is called a historical anachronism. A historical anachronism is trying to project the present to the past and trying to understand the past. What we have to do is we have to understand the past in situ situations, for which we need to understand their own knowledge system. So while trying to study temple architecture in India, it is all the more essential that how we generate a knowledge system that could give us the way that those people thought, the way that those people took measurements, the kind of knowledge system and skills possessed by those people. These are the things that a temple architecture should reveal, so that could be a great lesson for the youngsters. And even today, I believe a lot of people from engineering background, architecture particularly, those who are doing architecture from the institutes like NITs, they come and visit these huge temples of grandeur and try to study the architectural elegance of these temples. But I must say that the historians as well as the archaeologists and the experts in temple architecture must bring out the knowledge system that is embedded in all this temple architecture, so that we can reveal to the world what type of mind that the Indians possessed in those 1000 or 1500 years ago. And apart from studying the temples, temples were center of economic activity. Temples were center of social activity. And not only that, temples also preserved rare species of fauna and flora. And that is the reason why every temple used to have a pond and every temple used to have a Salavriksha, which means the nearby areas are protected as temple lands. These temple lands were not touched by common people. So thereby these temple lands had huge vast territories of flora, and thereby the environment was protected. So this is again, temple played a major role in protecting the environment of the region. And again, the iconography that is inside the temples is a rare and classic piece of architecture that we have in, say, India. Each and every region has their unique characteristic features, the way in which the gods and their figures are displayed inside the temple to be really seen and appreciated. And that is the reason why even foreigners, when they visit Indian temples, they are attracted by the kind of say iconography displayed in the temples, and hence sometimes they would like to possess the iconography itself. And apart from this, our own students, scholars, when they study the iconography of this region, there is a philosophy behind each and every aspect of Indian temples and the iconography. It is not merely studying the names of the icons and the kind of religion behind these icons, but there should have been integration of Indian philosophical system as well as the Indian mind and the exhibits of these exhibits, the iconography, and this should be understood. Unless you understand the philosophical background of these iconography, we may not be able to understand the other aspects of temple architecture as well as the iconography. I am sure that the efforts of Department of History and in collaboration with the Distance Education, Directorate of Distance Education, Dr. Manimegala, who is now the current director, and this is a good effort from both to host a webinar for 3 days, and they have chosen Dr. Rajavelu, who is really an expert in this aspect, and this would really instill a lot of say new insights and bring many more youngsters to understand the Indian architecture and iconography of this land. I wish this webinar a grand success and wish all the participants good luck. Thank you.